Hello, and welcome to episode 30 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin, and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. I've had a really pleasant week. This week I decided to take a little bit of a knitting week to concentrate on some of my projects. I didn't have a lot of custom orders. I got most of those done. And for the collection, I'll just let you know now, I am doing a slightly larger collection that I will be showing next week. So I didn't have all of the sewing to do this week, so I decided to take a little bit of time, naughty me, and do some knitting during the afternoons and mornings instead of just right before Avery gets home from school. So that was lovely. I got a lot of work done on one of my projects that I am going to show you a little bit later. And then I have some other things this week. So the other thing that happened this week was my anniversary. So my husband Dennis and I have now been married for 10 years as of yesterday, and in some ways it seems like, you know, no time at all, and then in other ways I'm like, oh my god, 10 years, like whatever. If you're married, you know what it's like. So it's been a really lovely 10 years, I will say that. And yeah, we had our anniversary yesterday, and so coming up to this week, I thought, you know what might be fun is to do a little themed episode, take a little walk down memory lane, and just look at some projects from the past that tie into our relationship in some way, either that I have made for him or that tie in other ways. But yeah, just to bring up some projects from the past. And then I have one project that you have been seeing lately that does somehow tie into the theme as well, and so I have that to show as well. So let's get started. I have my tea today. It has been brisk this week. It is officially like, you know how when summer ends and fall's coming, there's still that, cool weather, then warm weather, then cool weather, then warm weather. I think we are officially out of the warm weather period. We are right into fall, venturing closer to winter. This week has been quite cool. I've got my nice warm tea here, and I'm going to be enjoying this. It is fresh, so it is hot, though I did put a little bit of cream in it. But yeah, I have pecan pie rooibos today from Seven Sisters Tea, and this is one I really enjoyed this one. It is one I will definitely reorder. It's just really pleasant. I put a little dollop of vanilla extract in there too. So I am just all set. So let's get started. So good. So got my tea, got my projects. What are we going to start with? We are going to start with, I took a look at my Ravelry project page. So I had some ideas going into this, which projects I have made for him over the years, and which ones I wanted to, search through the house and find and stuff. But I went through my Ravelry project page. I went all the way to the bottom to try and find things, the earliest thing. And the first thing that I made for Dennis was before we got married. It was in February, so it was a Valentine's Day gift, and it's super corny, and I don't care because it actually lives very happily on this shelf, and it makes me smile every time I see it. And it is this little jar of olives. Can you see those? And do you know why I made him a little jar of olives? Because it says this on it. Isn't that cute? I think it's cute. Anyway, this is actually a pattern on Ravelry. I will link it below. It's a free pattern by Mary Jane Mucklestone, and I took the time to knit all these tiny little olives, and I presented that to him one Valentine's Day. Was he impressed? Probably not, but he you know what he does? He just kind of like looks at me and rolls his eyes when I do stuff like that, but that's okay. I still enjoyed it. So I have this whole little jar of olives, light green, dark green olives, and that was one of the first things that I made for him before we got married. I actually made this in 2007, and it was the year that we got engaged. So it was before we got engaged. Yeah, so it's February, and we got engaged in July of that year. So yeah, that was the first thing that I made him one Valentine's Day long ago. The second thing that I found when I was looking through my projects was, it was a big project. So this was made after we got married. So we got married, obviously, our anniversary was yesterday. October 2008 is when we got married. And the very next year, so 2009, I decided to make him a sweater. Now, at the time, I was not a brand new knitter, but I was still new to a lot of things. I don't think I had really dabbled in adult garments yet. I certainly hadn't dabbled in complicated stitch patterns and stuff like that. I made mainly small toys, accessories, maybe little kid garments for when our friends were having babies and stuff like that, but not a lot of big projects. So we had been married for a year, and I decided to make him a sweater. And at the time, there were not, even though Ravelry was around, and I remember, I think I joined Ravelry in 2008, there still wasn't a lot of patterns for men. So at some point, at either was at a yarn store, or probably not online, probably at a yarn store, I found this book here. And it was one of the very few books that I had found that had men's patterns in it, that were actually like men's patterns that I thought both he and my brothers, because I mentioned I have 3 brothers and I do knit for them, would wear. And so I snapped this up, and I think I showed it to him, and he picked out, let's see if I can find it, he picked out this sweater here. And this one is Beck's sweater. Okay, can we see that? Isn't that a lovely sweater? And isn't that a lovely model? That made knitting it just all that more enjoyable. But he picked out that sweater. And like I said, this was pretty much my first adult garment. And I did learn a lot from it, but we have a story time with this sweater. I made it for him. It took me, I started it in January of 2009, and I finished it in that summer. And I took a lot of time. I found some yarn for it. It had to be washable because he does not, his sweaters need to be washed. So I found washable yarn. I found a color that, you know, I thought he would really like. And I worked on this sweater. I was so proud of it when I was done, but there were issues. Now, I will say this book, the patterns are really, really, really nice. And I have actually made several of them for my brothers, but they're not the easiest, they're not the easiest if you don't have a lot of experience with garments. I found there was a lot of times where I had to figure things out, and you know, like not read into it, but just to assume things that weren't exactly said in the pattern. So while I still would knit from this book, I would not say if you are a brand new garment maker just to dive into this one, especially now since there's so many more men patterns available both on Ravelry and in books and stuff. So yeah, I made him that sweater. I was very happy with it, and it didn't fit him properly. The sleeves were a little bit off. I think I have a picture of him wearing it, and I will put it up here. The body was okay, but the sleeves, there was something funky going on with the sleeves. They were just way too big, way too bulky, and I did attempt to kind of take them in a little bit, but I mean, you can see that it's not ideal. I was not proud of the result, and I think one of the worst things was that he still wore it. He would still wear it to work, and every time he'd wear it, I would just be like, oh, why are you wearing that? Like, don't tell anybody I made that. Like, I just wanted it to go die in a corner, but he still wore it. And I was determined that I was going to make him another sweater to replace it so that he would stop wearing it. Now, that fast forwards to many, 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 many years in the future. But, so getting back to the sweater, even though this sweater has been around for 9 years now, it has not been worn. It moved with us to the house we're in now, and it has just been sitting in the closet. I have no problem donating knitwear if I think someone out there might get use out of it and enjoy it and love it. But this sweater had I don't think the yarn was the best choice, and it just got really, really misshapen. It got really, really wide, and it kind of fuzzed, like it didn't fuzz, but it kind of felt it even though it was super washed. It was weird. Anyway, it's basically been in our closet, sitting in the closet, and I've always had the intention of doing something with it to make it more useful, but still to kind of keep that sentiment because it was the first sweater that I made him. And so this week, because it was our anniversary, I decided to finally dig it out and do something with it. And I'd always thought, because it had gotten so wide and stretched out, that it actually might make a good pillow cover. And my original intention was that I would like cut it up and make a pillow cover, but we have a pillow that's on our couch, and it's quite large, and it's like a faux leather looking pillow. It's getting to be where it's in a little bit of rough shape, but when he falls asleep on the couch, as men do a lot of the times, that's the pillow he likes to lie on, and I don't know why, it's not that comfortable. It's comfortable, but not like to sleep on, you know, like to have on your face. So I decided to see if I put the pillow into the sweater, if it would fit, and could I work around it, you know, stitch around the edges and make it a pillow cover. And I did that. I put it in, and it was a really, really good fit. However, to get rid of like the collar and the sleeves, it would have changed how it would fit over the pillow. So I just decided to shove it in, sew everything down, and it's a pillow cover that still looks like the sweater. Are you ready to see this? Now, I did this the other day, and I haven't shown him yet. He's going to totally roll my eyes. I think I'm just going to put it on the couch today, and just see when he comes home what he says. I guarantee you he's going to roll his eyes at me. But are you ready? Here it is. This is our new couch cushion from the old sweater. You see that? So all I did is I stitched down the arms. So they've been stitched down all on the edges. And then I sewed the bottom of it closed, and I tried to match up the cables. So it is all sewn in there. Now the collar I left. This is what I was talking about. Like, in order to close the pillow up here, I would have to take this off, but I'd have to cut through the zipper, and that would still be there because I'm not dealing with that. And I was like, you know what? I decided I'm just gonna leave this up there. If down the road I decide to fix that and figure out a way to take the collar off and make it more like an actual pillow cover, I might do that. But I don't know. I think it's kind of funny how it's like a pillow that looks like his sweater, because this sweater has been a source of joking between us for a long time, for almost 10 years. So I think it's funny that it still kind of looks like the sweater. And if I don't want it to look like that, I can always put the back in the front, so it just looks like a nice cabled pillow. But I'm hoping that when he falls asleep on the couch now, at least it's a nice, soft, squishy surface, and hopefully it will bring good thoughts. Because I mean, when I originally made that sweater, the intention was there. I really wanted to make him a nice sweater, and it's just things don't always work out when you're a new knitter. So that sweater didn't work out, and then the 9 years since that sweater, all I have heard from him is, when am I getting a new sweater? 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 Several years ago, I had picked one out, and I had intended to make it for him. Last year or the year before, I ended up ripping that out. I had it almost done. I think I had the back done and the front's done, and maybe part of a sleeve started. But again, it wasn't washable yarn, and the man needs washable yarn. So I ended up ripping that out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the yarn, but we'll figure that out. And then last year I started him a new sweater, and I finished that for Valentine's Day this past year. I'll link it in the project page. I might put up a quick picture of him in his new sweater, and I am much happier with this sweater. It fits him really well. It might be partly the pattern, it might be partly the yarn, it might be partly just me growing as a knitter. But it looks good on him, it fits him, he wears it to work. It doesn't make me, like, when he wears it to work, I'm like, oh no, don't wear it to work. It looks like a sweater should look. So he now has a sweater he is happy with, I am happy with. I would eventually like to make him another sweater. I do have some patterns picked out. I don't have any yarn because I'm not buying yarn this year as much as possible. And a man's garment's worth is quite a bit of an investment. So maybe in the new year, I might think about that down the road, but not right now. He has that sweater, he can wear that sweater. So that was the second thing I made him. I think there might have been a scarf in the middle there too, but other than this sweater, I think the main things that I made him were like scarves and hats. But even then, he would lose those, so I don't make him scarves and hats very much anymore. So that sweater was finished in August of 2009. So it was for, we'd been married for a year, and I finished that sweater in August of 2009. So coming up to October, so our first anniversary, I decided to make him a pair of socks. And not just any pair of socks. I think this was my first pair of socks. Like when I looked through my projects, I didn't see any socks before this. So this may have been my very first pair of socks that I'd ever made. And I was making them for our anniversary. And to make it extra corny, because that's what I do, I mean, look at the olives. What I did is I purchased a sock blank. And this was way before sock blanks. Like right now, sock blanks are like a thing. And sock blanks were still available back then, but they just didn't have the popularity that they do now. But I bought a sock blank, and I had never dyed anything before either. And I decided I was going to dye it, and I was going to write the first verse. Okay, you ready for super cheese? Are you ready? I was going to write the first verse of our wedding song on this sock blank, and then knit him a pair of socks with it. Because you wouldn't see the letters, if you know how sock blanks work, everything kind of becomes spread out and speckled. But you wouldn't see them in there, but they'd be in there, right? So super corny, first anniversary present. I still have these socks. Now, there is no way that he can wear these socks. This is also why I've said this in videos before, that when I make Dennis socks, they have to be now like Opal, Regia, Croy, hard-wearing, like commercial brand yarns, because he just wears through anything that is softer than that, like your typical indie brand sock yarn. He just wears through those so quickly. So this was made from a sock blank that was probably like 75 merino, a superwash merino, and 25 nylon, and yeah, we still had these. I had to dig these out from the back of the drawer, but I still had them. And these are the socks, and you can see, like, you're like, why are you showing us these ratty socks? But here, the holes there, they've got holes there. I mean, these, and even the foot, I don't know if it's just shrunk or if it's just, I didn't know how to make the proper size. These, I don't know if these would fit him. These seem like they're too small now. But these are the socks. So I dyed the yarn a mixture of teals and browns, and then once that was done, I took some black dye in like a squirt bottle or something, either a squirt bottle or a brush, I don't remember, and I wrote out the lyrics. I will link the project page for this if you want to see, because I do have some pictures on there of the kind of the process. But these are the socks that came out, and these were back in the day, you know, my first pair of socks. I followed a typical pattern to the T. It's got a heel flap and a gusset, and you know I don't really make socks like that anymore. I don't know if there was just not the amount of choice in terms of sock knitting back then, or it's just I wasn't aware of the different options. It always seemed like if you were going to make a pair of socks, it was top down with a heel flap and a gusset. And so that's what these are. A little bit of ribbed. I'm sure if I made these again, these would actually fit him. They're quite soft. I should, maybe for next year, it's too late this year. This year he's getting his sweater pillow, but maybe for next year, I should try and make him a new version of these socks. Even though he'll wear through them, but that's okay. What do you think? Should I make another version? Because these are basically just sentimental in the back of the drawer at this point. But yeah, so this was the next thing that I made him, and I really had fun with these, and he did wear them, and he did enjoy them, so maybe I'll do that. Maybe I should make him another pair of, like, wedding song socks or something like that. That might be fun. So that's the next project that I made. And then finally, the project that I have that ties into my current project. So if you know, I have been showing you over the past few weeks progress on my Girona top, and I made a lot of progress on it this week. This is all I wanted to work on, and this is partly why I took a week just to, I mean, I still did work, but I gave myself a little bit more knitting time than usual, and it was partly because of the Girona top. I've just been really inspired to finish it and work on it, and I wanted to get a good chunk done, and I thought it's perfect to show for this episode, because the yarn that I used for the Girona top, I'll show you the back here. So the gray yarn that you've been seeing that I've been using for the Girona top had actually been repurposed from another pattern that I made like ages ago. I think I finished it again, it would have been in 2008. So we got married in 2008, And I took that project, the original project that I used this gray yarn in, I took it on our mini moon. So we didn't go away on a big trip after we got married. We just went up a couple of hours up north to a little like cabin type retreat thing. And you know, they just had the main cabin, lovely meals, and then you had like a little cabin to yourself, and then you could go for hikes, or you could go use the canoes, or you could go, they had all these things that you could use. They had a little spa there. And so we went there for a few days. So I call it our mini moon. So I brought this project on our mini moon and worked on it there and finished it shortly after in November. However, it was never really a style that I would wear. It didn't fit the way I would want it to fit. But I did really like the yarn. So several years later, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago from now, I ripped out that sweater and put the yarn aside. And then I had found a pattern for a t-shirt that had like 2 colors. And I decided to order another color. So I found, that's the blue that you've been seeing. I actually found this on Ravelry on a D-stash. And I bought that several years ago to go with the gray yarn, with the hopes that I would make a new project with the two together. Enter the Girona top. So I've been working on it this week, and I'm almost done, guys. I'm almost done. So last time you saw it, I had the blue part done, so the blue half was done, and I was almost done the gray half. So here's the gray half, and I'll just show you there's the hem with the lace. And I was saying I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I think I was right before the parts where I split for the neck. And I said that I was probably going to do a contrast around the neckline, and I did do that. So I did a scoop neck with a contrast around the neckline. And then I had said that I was thinking of doing maybe some blue at the shoulders to bring in the blue from the other side, so that it wasn't just like a gray half and a blue half. I wanted to somehow bring each color into each side. So what I decided to do was put the blue around the neckband here, and I decided not to do the blue on the shoulders just because this side has the lace bottom, and I thought it might be a little busy to have a lace bottom and a contrast shoulder. And so what I ended up doing, and you know this is going to make the screen go all funny, what I ended up doing was ripping back the blue side that I'd already done and adding gray shoulders onto the blue, because the blue bottom is just plain, and so I thought it would be visually okay to have a little bit of interest on this side because the other side had the lace. So I ripped back on the blue side and added the contrast gray shoulders. So it just kind of starts here on me, and then I did the blue contrast edge all the way around. So this is almost done. I've woven in, actually I can't even say I've woven in because of the nature of this yarn. It's kind of like a chainette construction. I had to kind of sew or tack down, like sew with sewing thread, my ends down, but I've gone through and I've tacked down all the ends. The only ends that are left are the ones from doing the contrast, the I-cord edging there. All the ends are all tacked down. So all I have to do is sew the seams up. And the reason I didn't just do that is because this yarn it behaves very, very differently once it's blocked versus not blocked. So the blue side is actually more than half blocked, because as I was working on it, I decided to block it to see how much it grew and how the fabric would behave, if it would be drapey, as drapey, because I did do a swatch, but sometimes it can be different in the garment than a swatch. And I wanted to see if it would be as drapey, how much it would grow in length, as I was trying to figure out how long I was going to make it. And it does change quite a bit. So what I want to do before I seam up the sides on this garment is soak it. And that's what I found with this yarn as well, is that I couldn't just get it damp and then block it. It had to be like soaked for, I think I soaked it overnight to really get it to where it would bloom and drape and be a really, really nice fabric. So I'm going to have to soak this and then really, really stretch it out before I can sew up the seams. And I'm hoping that the whole drapey thing will happen, because the one thing, like I've been able to put it on kind of over top and just see, But right now the sleeves seem a little stiff, like they don't just fall over the shoulders nicely, and I hope once it's blocked that these will really open up and drape much nicer, because right now they kind of stick out. So the jury is still out on how this garment will end up. Will it be something that I can wear and that I will enjoy wearing, or will it be something that I just really enjoyed making and that I will pass along or whatever? So the jury is still out on that. I have to see. I have to give it a good block, and I'll be able to report next week on how that goes. Hopefully it will have time to dry, because I can't leave things outside anymore to dry in the sun. We're not getting those warm sunny days anymore. So it might just take a while to dry, but that's the plan now, is to block this, get it soaking, block it, seam it, and then we'll see. But the Girona top will be done soon, and then I can put a lot of my knitting energy into my holiday projects. So that's all I have for kind of my memory lane projects, and just talking about some of the fun things that I thought would be just fun to talk about. And so speaking of holiday gifts, I will remind you that we have a gift along, a season of gifting Cal going on in the Bling Your String group. It is more of a project along, because any kind of craft is welcome as long as you make a gift with your two hands and the necessary materials for someone over the next few months. It ends at the end of December. You can enter it into this Cal. It doesn't matter what it is. And then, yeah, for the collection, I am going to be having a slightly larger collection ready for next week. I am going with the jack-o'-lanterns and owls, the stern-looking owls. That will be one fabric that I'm using. And then the other fabric that was voted on quite a bit was the leaves. And I thought that would be a really, really nice pairing, because the colors that are in the two fabrics kind of have a lot of crossover, so any yarn that I do, I think, will go really nicely with either fabric. So that collection will be ready for next week, and that's all I have this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a little different, but I hope you enjoyed it as a bit of story time, and yeah, I hope you have a lovely weekend and get all your crafting done, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.